Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Wimbledon. How Roland Garros' success overwhelmed Coco Gauff to Yastremska loss. Coco Gauff's dream of a historic Roland Garros Wimbledon double came crashing down in the first round at SW19, as the emotional toll and rushed grass court switch proved too much against an inspired Diana Yastremska. World number 2 Coco Gauff made a shock exit from Wimbledon 2025, falling in straight sets to Ukraine's Diana Yastremska in the first round. The American, fresh off her triumph at Roland Garros, struggled to find her rhythm on grass, losing 7-6, 7-3, 6-1 in just over an hour. It was a disappointing outing for the 20-year-old, who is yet to make it past the fourth round at the All England Club. Just 3 weeks after lifting her maiden French Open title, Gauff confessed that the whirlwind of winning in Paris, the lack of celebration, and the abrupt transition to grass left her overwhelmed and underprepared. She admitted that the emotional toll and tight turnaround didn't allow her to fully reset or adapt to the challenges of the surface. Mentally, I was a bit overwhelmed with everything that came afterwards. I didn't feel like I had enough time to celebrate and also get back into it. It's the first time I've come off a win and had to play at Wimbledon. I definitely learned a lot about what I would and wouldn't do again, Gauff said during the post-match press conference. The American also reflected on her scheduling and questioned whether she should have skipped Berlin, a grass court warm-up, and spent more time training instead. I only practiced 2 days. I don't usually like to play the week before, but it's a quick turnaround. Maybe I should have played Bad Homburg or Eastbourne. If that time comes around again, I'll approach it differently, she added. Only a handful of women have managed to win the French Open and Wimbledon in the same season, the last being Serena Williams in 2015. Gauff's performance on the day reflected just how difficult the transition between clay and grass can be. Her usually reliable serve broke down under pressure, as she fired 9 double faults and struggled with consistency throughout. Yastremska, meanwhile, looked sharp and composed, dictating play with her aggressive ground strokes and never allowing Gauff to settle into a rhythm. The American had her chances in the first set, but couldn't convert, and from there, the match quickly slipped out of her hands. With her Roland Garros crown still fresh, many had hoped Gauff could attempt a rare and historic double, winning both the French Open and Wimbledon in the same season. But as history shows, it's a feat that has evaded generations of top players. Only 6 women in the Open era have ever done it, with Serena Williams being the last in 2015. For Gauff, that dream will have to wait, but her ambitions remain sky-high. Wimbledon. How Roland Garros' success overwhelmed Coco Gauff to Yastremska loss. By the time the fresh grass of Wimbledon started glistening in the soft July light, Coco Gauff should have been ready. The tennis world thought she was. She had just come off one of her most emotionally charged and career-defining runs at Roland Garros, where clay courts slowed the world down to her rhythm, and she danced on them with the poise of a champion in the making. But Wimbledon, despite its grace and prestige, has no patience for emotional lag. Grass is quicker, less forgiving, and in the first week, the green swallowed her whole, especially in the hands of Diana Yastremska, a player with grit to match Gauff's spirit and, crucially, fresher legs. The echoes of Paris. Gauff's 2025 Roland Garros campaign was no small feat. She battled opponents and inner doubts, fought through 3-set thrillers, and left Paris a semi-finalist with more crowd support than anyone not named Nadal. She played like a veteran, speaking like a leader, and carried the weight of expectation with something bordering on elegance. But success has its costs. Every match she won in Paris etched deeper into her reserves of energy, mental and physical. She became the darling of clay, but the pressure that followed was not just external. Gauff is her own toughest critic. With the Roland Garros semifinals came a higher bar she set for herself. She wasn't just a contender now. She was expected to deliver on every surface. And Wimbledon waited, gleaming. Grass is not clay. Gauff has always had a complicated relationship with grass. Her breakthrough moment, defeating Venus Williams as a 15-year-old in 2019, came at Wimbledon, but grass hasn't been her most consistent surface. Her powerful baseline game and fierce forehand shine better on slower courts. Grass requires adaptability, short points, Quick reactions, lower bounces. Paris had let her build points. Wimbledon demanded she finish them. In the second round, Gauff met Diana Yastremska, a player who, at first glance, seemed to be just another ambitious ball striker in the WTA ranks. But Yastremska was more than that. A comeback artist, a hard hitter with the ability to play fearless tennis, and most dangerously, someone with nothing to lose. She had come through qualifying with something to prove. Gauff came with something to protect. The match that slipped away. The early rallies told the story. Yastremska was hitting freely, taking the ball early, rushing Gauff into errors. Meanwhile, Coco looked just a half step slower, second-guessing her shots, trying to find rhythm on a surface that punished hesitation. The first set vanished in a blur, 6-3 to Yastremska. The second was closer, but Gauff's body language betrayed a fatigue that had less to do with the match itself and more with the miles she'd clocked in the last 2 months. From the Middle East hardcourt swing to the clay marathon in Europe, Gauff had been running on fumes. Grass courts, unfortunately, demand sprint energy, not marathon stamina. She saved a few break points, pushed the match deeper, but eventually Yastremska's aggressive returns and unrelenting pace sealed it. 6-3, 7-5. It wasn't an upset. It was an unraveling. Emotional hangover. Tennis is a sport of surfaces, but it is even more a sport of psyche. Gauff had walked into Wimbledon with Paris still playing in her mind, like a song she couldn't turn off. Every win there had carved a deep groove in her emotional landscape. At 20, she was already a veteran of public scrutiny, but she's still learning how to shed emotional weight between tournaments. The best players compartmentalize. They shift gears, switch emotions, and adapt. Gauff's Roland Garros run was so deeply human, so filled with grit and vulnerability, that it seemed to leave her emotionally spent. At Wimbledon, the tank was still reading empty. And Yastremska, she smelled it, played with abandon, hit like the match was hers to take, and it was. A loss, not a defeat. Still, it's worth saying, Gauff didn't collapse. She didn't crumble. She lost. There's a difference. She was outplayed by a better grass court player that day. At that moment, her serve wasn't sharp. Her footwork was a little late. Her returns lacked bite. But she didn't mentally unravel. She stayed composed, fought until the final point, and accepted the loss with grace. And this is where the arc bends upward again, because the greats, Williams, Federer, Nadal, have all been here. They've all suffered post-Grand Slam letdowns. Serena once followed up a French Open title with a third-round Wimbledon exit. Federer has lost to journeyman on grass. Nadal has been stunned on center court in the early rounds. It happens. What defines them isn't that happened, but how they responded. The Coco equation. Coco Gauff is already in a different category of players. At 20, she's won a Grand Slam, made deep runs at others, and carried the flag for a new generation of tennis fans. But she is also still in formation, still learning how to pace herself across a grueling season, still figuring out how to transition not just between surfaces, but between states of mind. The Wimbledon loss to Yastremska was not a sign of regression. It was a lesson in load management, in emotional rebound, in the perils of momentum misunderstood. Sometimes success can be a burden. Winning in Paris didn't just raise expectations. It raised the emotional stakes. And when you play with your whole heart, as Gauff always does, sometimes there's just not enough left for the next chapter. Wimbledon wasn't a failure. It was a reminder. Even rising stars are allowed to stumble. Yastremska's moment. Let's not forget the other half of this story. Diana Yastremska played the match of her season. Her power was clean, her shot selection sharp. She dictated play and didn't let up. For years, she has battled injuries, suspensions, and inconsistency. But this match was a glimpse of the player she always believed she could be. She earned that win. And Wimbledon, ever the stage of contrast, reminded us that tennis is not just about ascents and legacies, it's about the day. Who plays better when the moment arrives? Looking ahead, Coco Gauff will be fine. More than that, she'll be great. This loss might sting more because of how well she played in Paris. But it's also the kind of loss that leads to evolution. Wimbledon 2025 may go down as a blip, a chapter between bigger triumphs. Or maybe it's the precise moment where Gauff learns to leave one victory behind before chasing the next. The season continues. The hard courts await. And Coco, more aware of herself than ever, will return. Maybe next year, when the grass glistens again in July, she'll step onto it lighter, not just physically, but emotionally, ready to rewrite the story Wimbledon tried to write for her this year.